Well, hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Alexis Rogers, and I'm the Customer Relationship Lead here at RightCapital. And I want to welcome you to our webinar today with Encore Estate Planning and RightCapital, and our guest speaker today with Clark Johnson, that is going over growing revenue with estate planning and advisor success story. So today I am honored to be joined by Matt Morris, CEO of Encore Estate Plans, and Clark Johnson, financial advisor of Oak Crest Wealth Management. Now, in today's session, Clark Johnson is going to be diving into his success story on how he incorporates estate planning into his practice by both leveraging RightCapital and Encore Estate Plans. Before Clark dives into his practices, though, I will be covering a few housekeeping items, and then Matt and I will be giving an overview as to what our tools accomplish. So I just wanted to highlight very quickly that this session will be recorded and that you will receive a recording in the follow-up email after the session ends. Now, towards the end of the presentation, this is intended to be an interactive conversation. So if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A section and type out your questions there, and we'll have some time devoted towards the end to answer any questions that you have. Now, a quick refresher on our system here at RightCapital. We are widely known as a comprehensive financial planning software. We have very robust planning modules that go over things like dynamic tax strategies, such as equity allocation strategies, Roth conversions, things like life insurance, and of course, estate planning, which is key for today. We have committed ourselves to delivering cutting-edge solutions that empower our users to make informed decisions, drive efficiency, and have that visual backdrop that allows for easier understanding of a client's plan. So from start to finish, our system is meant to be that intuitive process with RightCapital. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Matt Morris, who's going to be leading a little bit more of the discussion and give more background as to what Encore Estates can accomplish in their platform. So Matt,
thank you, Alexis. Appreciate having this webinar opportunity with you today. Been a big fan of RightCapital for a long time. It's an incredible platform and popular, I know, amongst our advisors. And so, yeah, looking forward to giving you kind of a quick overview of really the estate planning gaps and issues that exist for investors and the opportunity within advisors that we've built for users of Encore. And then, so we'll talk through some of those pieces, and then I'm going to throw it over to Clark, who you really want to hear from, who's a user of our platforms, who will give you kind of how he works with his clients. But we'll start here with kind of an interesting statistic that we found, and this was based off a Merrill Lynch survey of their clients. And they asked the question, how do you feel about people who pass away without having an estate plan? In this survey, 88% of people chose words like irresponsible, inconsiderate, and ignorant to describe people who passed away without an estate plan. 58% of the people who responded in that survey with that answer also admitted, oh, I don't have an estate plan. And there is a cognitive dissonance that exists on this topic for people, knowing they need it, but something about the estate planning experience the client experience is broken, that it results in procrastination. And there's really two options that have traditionally existed in the marketplace. One being on the left here, that DIY online software solution that is really an affordable way to get an estate plan done. Yet, and those, a LegalZoom has been around for 20 years, yet we still exist where 67% of Americans overall don't have an estate plan. And so there's something about DIYing such an important document that seems to leave people overwhelmed, intimidated. Is this document going to accomplish what I want? And those big questions. And the obvious other option that all of you here have as estate planning attorney partners that you're referring your clients to. And I'm sure all of you have dealt with the procrastination that comes with clients saying, yep, I need to get that done. I'll call the attorney. And year after year after year, they don't get that done. It's not exciting to go to a stranger and talk about end of life, family dynamics and personal things, spend thousands of dollars for a document I don't intend to use anytime soon. And in the process, that would cost me a lot of money to update into the future. And it's a transactional relationship. relationship in working with an attorney. And so that just doesn't leave a great client experience. And so what we really believe at Encore is that you, the advisor, is uniquely positioned to deliver the best estate planning experience. And the cool part is that's why Encore and RightCapital, we've built these tools for you that Clark's going to talk you through that help you with different aspects of estate planning and combine, deliver that great experience that get clients to create their documents, understand the tax implications of estate planning decisions, and through that process. And it's really a demand from your clients as well. This was a Spectrum Group survey that in interviewing individual investors that work with advisors, 93% of them said, I want my advisor to help me with my estate planning. Right now, 22% of advisors are stepping into this gap. Clark's in a minority, but able to deliver that a great experience. Now, the first question that comes up for all of you, and you haven't put it in the Q&A yet, but I know it's coming, and it should, and this is how you're thinking right. If you're asking this question, how can I help my clients with estate planning, especially around document creation without practicing law? And so Clark will talk a little bit about this. You can ask him and he can give some feedback on how he does this. But you as the advisor are in the realm, not as a legal advice giver. That is the practice of law. You can't use the word what you should do. That is stepping over that line. You can't create documents yourself as well. That's where you have a partner like Encore that's doing the document creation. You live in the world of estate planning education. And so that you can provide good in general information to clients that allow them to make their own decisions, and you can help them leveraging resources. We have hundreds of client resources on any question the client can have as an example, but you can leverage educational roles. There's a few key things to this is working with clients who have pretty straightforward, simple plans. Clark will talk about that, and disqualifying complicated plans. Disclosures are important when you're helping in estate planning, that the client signed off. They understand you're not an attorney, you're not giving legal advice. But taking that same approach you do to beneficiary designation decisions, gifting strategies that you're helping clients with around estate planning, and being able to piggyback that education into a broader role and having documentation of the clients. We have an article on this on our blog if you wanted to dig in more on what's the role of unauthorized practice of law and how do I help with this. And so here's an interesting consideration for you, kind of why estate planning, and also the question of what happens for advisors that are collaborative in their approach in estate planning with their clients versus just delegating it to attorney or delegating it to a third-party software. This is feedback. We've done a survey recently with our advisors and that they're sharing the data and their experience. We heard from our advisors that they are seeing a 25% increase in their planning fees when they're collaborating with their client on the estate planning experience. 80% of them said they're seeing an increase in referrals because of estate planning. 100% of them said they believe the spouse that's not engaged in financial planning sometimes is the retention of that spouse. That the studies have shown 70% of wives leave when their husband died, they leave their advisor. That our advisors are saying 100% of the time, I know I'm improving the retention with that spouse. And 35% of our advisors are saying we've uncovered assets when we're doing estate planning, when we're doing beneficiary designation and funding topics. And so this is the value of stepping into this gap. We're hoping you're here today because you see some of these pieces and you want to be able to understand that. And then it comes to kind of the life cycle. Where is the client in their estate planning life cycle? And what do they need? Maybe it's a review of their existing documents that they did 10 years ago. At Encore, you can upload those documents to us. We give a nice visual summary back to you, and you can have a conversation about that existing document. Is it current and up to date? And then it's creating new documents. You can facilitate the software with the client that they answer all the questions they need to do to get a new trust or a new will or a restated trust created by Encore and our team. And that process is now getting those documents in place if they aren't there. Sometimes that can be powers only documents as well. If you just need, they don't even have a power of attorney, healthcare directive, the HIPAA documents. Making sure the funding is there. This is a incredible important part of the funding process is filing. If it's a trust-based estate plan, the house is funded into the name of the trust is important. Business assignment and business interests are funded with the trust. And then one of the most important things that advisors are creating and solving for is that keeping the documents up to date. Once it's digitized, it's an incredibly a beneficial experience when client documents can be updated in a matter of minutes. We had an advisor on a recent webinar share that one of his client document he had facilitated or helped his client, they got in place through Encore a year ago. Client learned that their oldest daughter, who they named as the trustee, was addicted to pain meds. And they're like, you know what? We don't want her in that trustee role if something happens to us. Advisor in 90 seconds was able to log into the software. They moved their middle son to the name of the trustee, and had new documents within 5 business days over to them. And so that simple update when life events, relationships, those things change, those advisors are delivering an incredible experience. Within the Encore platform, why Encore? Couple of things. We're a pay-as-you-go platform. You don't have to pay for a subscription. You just, when you use our services, you pay for them as you go. You can facilitate on an advisor-driven path within our software. We have a human review on every document that we create. And so there's a quality control component on the back end that's really important, that it's not just a bad information into a software, bad document out. And that's really important from a customization capability we have and a partnership with the advisor that we become a back office estate planning team. And then the funding component is deed filing, making sure that's done. We can help with that. We have like RightCapital within our category. We are #1 when it comes to advisor satisfaction in both the T3 and KITSA surveys. That's why we're excited to partner today with a webinar, because we're the best at what we do, both of us in our individual spaces. Clark is going to take you through this. Kind of just wanted to give you the screenshot of the process of the software being the intake with the client, and looking forward to Clark sharing this in a minute. And I wanted to give you this visual summary overview that this is an incredible opportunity for advisors to, when you're taking a 70, 80 page document for the client and you're able to provide them a deliverable that shows 90% of what they need to know about that document in a 1-page overview, whether this is on a new document and now they have that, or it's on their existing document. This is a great family conversation. It can be used for that. So these are the sorts of pieces that are available within what we do. I'll leave it off this slide, but as I explained, we are a free platform. We get paid when we create either that visual summary or a trust-based estate plan, will-based estate plan. You can see the amounts here for those documents. We're disrupting the price. A lot of advisors are charging planning fees in addition to our fee to the client, and the client's still saving money and getting a great experience. And so that's how our process is, how our software is set up. But enough about me talking. Let's throw it to the star of our conversation today. I'm going to stop sharing here. And Clark, welcome to the conversation. Let's hear more from you as the person that is in the weeds every day, working with clients directly. So throw it over to you to share what you have for us today.
Well, thank you, Matt, and I appreciate the credit. I feel so distinguished and credible with you inviting me to speak today. Look, I'm not the highest grossing producer in the country or even my state. It's just me and one assistant. I don't have all the answers necessarily either to what our audience may have, but what I do share, I think, is a common passion for helping clients see the value in having an estate plan, and then the most important part, taking action on it. I want to give credit to RightCapital and Encore real quick. Both of you offer a modern look to your software. You allow advisors to brand it. And then most importantly, I think you care. I can tell that you both care because of the level of detail you allow me and other advisors to go into with their clients' planning. Financial planning is not throwing a blanket over all your clients and advising them to do the same thing. It's individualized. I just want to thank you for making the tools that help us serve our clients that way. And for me in my journey, I've been giving financial advice for 15 years. 2 years ago, when I left Edward Jones to go independent, I went on this journey to find the very best tech stack, which was very fun for me because I was only using one firm's technology at that point in time. And I wanted to find the very best at retirement planning and estate planning. And I think these two are it. I did virtual calls and tech demos with everybody. And I just, I wish I'd found you guys sooner. RightCapital has a really good way of analyzing the risk or helping clients see the value in having the right estate plan. And then Encore comes in and dovetails into that by helping you create the documents. They have a knowledge base that you can lean on so you don't feel like you're by yourself. And then it gets executed the correct way. So anyways, full disclosure, that was an unpaid, unsolicited promotion I just gave both of you, but it's the honest truth. If you're an advisor and you think it's not your place to have in-depth conversations, or should I dare say, assist in the creation of an estate plan, I think you should change your mind. You can do this without giving legal advice. And I'd be willing to bet that many of you are already having these conversations. You're just not leveraging the right technology or partnering with the right company. Most advisors do what I did for the last 15 years, and that's just date local attorneys in your city or community off and on. But if you've done that, then you know that local attorneys, to your point, Matt, they're either too expensive, they're not thorough enough, or they're just not finishing the job, like helping fund the trust. Just this year, RightCapital and Encore have helped me personally create over 30 living trusts, and that's led to about $60,000 in revenue for me. Not to mention the assets that it's helped me gather, transferring people's assets into trust name, getting quick access to the documents, which my assistant really loves. And then the referrals on top of that. Our 40 to 50-year-old clients, they love it whenever you take them through this process I'm about to show you, because they always say, Clark, we got to get our parents in here. I don't know if they have an estate plan, or if the one they have, I know it's really old. So it just opens up the door for you to not be just an advisor to your client, but also the family advisor. So let's use an example. I want to show you one of my clients here. I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, so this is Fred and Wilma Flintstone. They've been clients a long time, and they are about 40 years old, each one of them. They have 2 kids, Pebbles and Bam Bam. Fred drives a Flintmobile to work, and they have about a net worth of $2 million. I won't spend a lot of time on this page. This is just kind of giving you an idea for who we're talking about. When you are doing this conversation with the client, if at some point when you bring it up using the RightCapital tools, you can get them to the estate flow chart, that's where I think the magic happens. And so I want to take us there. Estate, and then analysis, and then flows, where you get to this chart here. This just shows the power of compounding. And I always make the joke because I know clients their eyes are going to dart straight to total errors down here. There's 126 million. So if you have 2 40-year-old clients with $2 million, they're going to say, well, Clark, man, you're going to make me a lot of money. Let's go. Or more common than that, it's, are you sure the math is right? And so I think you need to drill down on helping clients see how valid this information is first before you go any further. My favorite way of doing that is either starting with the retirement projections and then coming to this, or going back to their net worth. So under retirement, then analysis, you can go to confidence and see a visual of how we got to their net worth, but you can also go to cash flows, my favorite part, then net worth. On the very far right column, where it shows their net worth in chronological order, you scroll all the way down, you can see how 178 million all of a sudden becomes realistic. Now, inflation adjusted, that's about $17 million today. So it makes it seem a little more achievable in that regard. But that's just to help you explain to the client how you got to this 127 million, or after taxes and fees, or 170 million before all that takes place. People know that having a living trust, which is the most basic form of estate planning, they understand how, well, that's appropriate if I want to, like, say, control the assets from the grave. Maybe Bam Bam he is going to turn out to be a knucklehead, and we need to put some strings attached to that money so he doesn't hurt himself. But where I think we often forget about the value that trusts bring to the table is the estate taxes. They're at a whopping 40%. Back in 2017, we doubled the exemption on the gift and estate tax exemption amount. So we've kind of forgotten about that. But after next year is over, we're going to revert back to, instead of it being 14 million like it is today, it's going to be back to 7 million. And so I think these conversations are going to be coming back up. And you can see here, when you don't have a living trust, how much in taxes and fees RightCapital is able to illustrate this costing the client by not doing any planning with a trust. Now, when you do these appointments to save on time, you're already going to have all this information put in. So it's very common for me to have this credit shelter trust added, which you can do so by just clicking on edit and then adding a new trust here. I'm not going to go into all of these. We're just going to add the credit shelter trust. And the reason that's important is if you're familiar with helping people get a trust made, you know that when the first spouse dies, you can take up to half of their estate, park it into this B trust or credit shelter trust. And that's how you can double that exemption from 7 million to 14 million, increasing your distance between you and that 40% tax rate. So how do we utilize that? So what you can do is, first off, you can show when you have a trust, it's an opportunity to avoid probate. And those probate costs vary maybe state to state. I know here in my state, it starts at 5%. So the first thing you can illustrate is by showing them the difference in that. So you've got 51 million here by combining Fred and Wilma's net worth here in this left column. So this 51 million at 5% probate, you eliminate that, you refresh the screen here at the bottom right corner, you've just saved them about $3 million or so. That's just by funding the trust. But if we go back to the savings that we get from doubling the exemption, let's include that. Refresh the screen. And now that 48 million drops to 24 million. How amazing is that? And not only that, but whatever fee you're about to charge, it's certainly worth it now. In the weeds, to make sure you're showing this correctly, and you have to be careful not to give legal advice here. So some of the phrases I will say is things like, you should consider getting a trust made, or we think this is what it may look like. We don't know exactly where tax rates are going, but we do know one thing: they've always been around, and based on the track that we're heading, your net worth's growing to where this will become a bigger and bigger risk. If we were to illustrate to the best of our abilities how we think this exemption may work out for you, I've got this 30,984,000 and some change put in here, which is the amount that, with Fred dying first at age 80, that's the amount of his estate that goes into that B trust. And how I get that figure is I'm going to go back to the retirement under cash flows and net worth. You go all the way down to where Fred dies, which is right here at age 80 in 2066. Half of that would be 40 million. But don't forget, you've got to take all the retirement accounts that are only in Fred's name and take that part out. That's all going to go into Wilma's name. So we can account for all the non-qualified assets and the properties. And then that's going to be around 40% in this case for the Flintstones. So that's to explain how I arrived to this 30 million. Again, we're not predicting the future, and you can reiterate that. We're just trying to show the value. So don't get too hung up on the math, but that is how I go about doing it. Now, for some clients, they might joke and say, well, after I'm dead and gone, Pebbles and Bam Bam, they can just fight over it. I don't care. Makes no difference to me. So if that's how they're thinking and the math isn't resonating with them, what I like to do is use one of these other two charts here on the right. So you've got the beneficiary checklist where you can, I have to say, RightCapital, when I first saw this, I did not know that there were actual blanks on this. You have to click on this blank space, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, I can type something in there or choose someone. You'd be amazed at how many people just don't have beneficiaries on their stuff, especially 401k accounts that they haven't been able to roll over to yet. You can fill all this out. and then start having a conversation outside of the math and more about their emotions. Like, well, what if something unexpectedly happens to your children? For me, good example, my cousin was hit by a train. He survived, but his brain is not what it used to be. Thank goodness his mom and dad left him a trust, because in that was language that carved out a special needs trust for him. That way, someone can not only take care of him, but also he has the option to apply and receive government assistance. And so that's something that you just can't measure or quantify under the flow chart. Or like in my brother's case, real life example, my parents are still living, but had they died with the trust or without a trust, and he had inherited all that into his individual name and then filed for bankruptcy, which he did in 2008, all that would have been exposed to creditors. And so that risk gets avoided. If there's a divorce, there are a lot of clients that will tell you, I do not want my in-laws to get the hands on this money that I've worked hard if something happens with a divorce down the road. So it could be a multitude of things that we can never expect. And so that's usually the direction I will go with the help of this beneficiary tab. If the math and what we do kind of expect on the number side isn't resonating with them. This checklist is another example. So when I ask the question to people on the very front end, so what does your estate plan look like? Generally, I'll get the answer of, well, yeah, I've got it done. Okay, well, what does that look like? Well, we've got a will, so we're good. Oh, okay, you've got a will. Okay, great. Well, did you know that there are other documents? Do you know if you have those? You can have conversations around who's going to make decisions for you when you can't, and all those things. And now you're getting them to think, wait a second, this estate planning thing is not just if I die, it's if I'm still living, who controls my money? So you can hit them from different angles. Not every appointment is going to be the same, as you all know, but so you just kind of have to dance with them sometimes. And some clients, they don't even need to see the math. They're all in. But when you're using RightCapital's tool, I think these are the different ways you can use it with the most magic happening underneath this flow chart here. So,
Hey, Clark, I have an interesting comment in there that I hear from our estate planners on our team all the time is, how to have the perfect estate plan is you just need to know when the client is going to die, how much money they're going to have when they die, and what the tax laws are going to be when they die. And so what you're doing here is we're getting some just general ballpark things that could be true, but those are three things that generally we don't know when we do this planning, and so that are going to be big variables that are why we're shooting for a ballpark, not specifics here as you articulated it.
Yeah, you're right on the money. The only thing we do know is there are going to be death and taxes. And
Exactly.
and you can really clearly demonstrate that on this tool here. So that's a great point. When I get to this point, or whenever I'm on the phone or with someone and they're asking, okay, so who do you recommend for a trust? That's when I can come in and say, well, as of recent, I've partnered with a company called EncorEstate Plans, and they're helping us get this done. And so here's how I answer that question on why they should trust me. I've put together this PDF, and any of you on this webinar are welcome to duplicate this, take it for what it is. This is just me. I put together what I believe to be the top 5 reasons for why they would consider me. With Encore, since you are able to pay as you go, for those of you that are interested in doing it that way, that's personally how I do it, you can set the price at what you want. So after sitting through 100 different estate planning appointments in town with other attorneys, I know what they all charge, and I'm sure you do too, those of you listening. So I'm able to set the fee at what I think is reasonable and adds value, saving the client money. Number 2, we don't stop working for you after it gets made. I mean, we are here to help retitle everything, do all the paperwork. We're the first people, advisors, they're going to get called from the kids whenever mom and dad pass away. You have skin in this. And so if you want your life to be easier in the future for your top clients that you're hoping you retain the assets for, make your life easier for that reason alone. And then also we have a relationship. So this process goes a lot faster than if we were to pass it on to a local attorney, because they're going to play the game of death by 1,000 questions where you already have all the answers here. especially when you're leveraging the RightCapital tool and have all their assets right there linked to their profile. When it comes to the fees, this is what I charge. It might be more than what some people charge, less than what others. I've had some advisors say I need to charge more. There are 3 different packages with Encore. I've just put my logo on this. 9 times out of 10, people do the trust. And that's if it's individual or married. It's costing me currently for this year about $500 to do the trust with Encore. So I'm netting about $1,250. And then 10 out of 10 times when people select the trust, they always take me up on Encore to do the deed transfer. And I will say, when I did all those tech demos and demonstrations with other estate planning software companies out there, I don't remember a single one of them offering to do the really annoying deed transfer paperwork. Encore does that, and the turnaround is faster than I expected. They charge $250 for that. I pass on that same fee to the client. The clients that I've shared this with, they're just like, hey, that's a good deal. I don't want to go to the courthouse or find someone that will do that. So usually people end up paying a flat $2,000 if they're in a situation where they have just one primary residence and then they're getting the trust. I personally added on these other 2 fees. I'm sorry, this other fee. We know by talking to people that are local in DMV how to get the vehicle title registration done. So if they want to get the titles of their car put into trust name, we can do that for the same $250. And then we pass on the same $150 fee here that Encore charges whenever an amendment needs to be made. I like that fee because we don't want people just changing their beneficiaries or amending their trust every day. We want people to stop and be intentional about it. Is this really what I want? I think the $150 can kind of help do that. So this is my service guide that I hand out to people. Do with it as you like. The Encore Estate tool. Here's what it looks like whenever we open up Fred and Wilma Flintstone's estate plan. And you can see here in this green bar, I've got about 85% of the information already put in. And most of that information, my assistant has put in. I can give her access to this. She can put all this in, or myself. And now when I'm in the meeting with a client or on the phone, all I'm doing is just filling in the other 15%. This is all information that we have already on file, like their names, the address, their contact, who their children are, all that. You can click this pencil icon and pick up for wherever you think it makes the most sense based on where you are in that conversation. So if I click here, I like going through this page to make sure I've spelled their name correctly. Maybe I thought their legal name was Fred and it's really Frederick or something like that. You just type all this information. You tell Encore at this place here at the bottom if you want them to deed the house over into the trust. You go all along here. You can even name the trust whatever you like. You can call it the Yabba Dabba Doo Trust, okay? Whatever you like. The level of detail and all this, I really appreciate from Encore and their team allow me to do this. You can go into the beneficiaries, for example, and let's just say Pebbles, she's got her head on right. She's probably going to be the one that's trustee, but Bam Bam, we don't know about him. You know, he's not making good grades in school. He's getting into trouble. We might need someone to control that. Well, you can do that right here in this box. You can specify to either never be in control. You can say, well, I want him to be in control, but not until he's age 40 or whatever age you want. And then you don't have to impose those same restrictions on Pebbles if you don't want to. Other estate planning software companies I'd used in the past, it was if they allowed you to get to this level of detail, it was like one or nothing. So I appreciate you being able to customize this in that regard. Down below, you can give out your personal possessions to your whoever. So let's say Fred wants to give the Flintmobile to Barney. You can specify this down here under gifts. You can choose to either have immediate or springing power of attorneys on this step. That's something else that I ran into with a really good, reputable estate planning company. They were just like, nope. It's always going to be a springing power of attorney. We don't feel comfortable doing the just immediate kind. Well, I love that Encore gives you the choice. And then down here at the bottom, as you're listing this, we always put a corporate trustee in place. I've been in situations where families don't have anyone that they can fall back on to do the trustee work and sign off and execute the trust after death. And so having a corporate trustee is very important. The other estate planning software companies don't allow you to do a corporate trustee. Encore does. And in my opinion, not trying to give legal advice here, but I just think you ought to consider having a corporate trustee as the very last trustee on every trust, because it is possible that there's no one else left to serve. So why wouldn't you use this as an opportunity to make it airtight and stay out of court? That's how you do that with a corporate trustee.
Clark, is there a corporate trustee that you work with?
Yeah, so I clear through LPL. They have their own. I think most brokerage firms do. Personally, I've been using Comerica Bank and Trust.
Okay.
The reason I like them is they have a trust officer that you can call, and you can just get a live person. I think some of these other trust companies, it's either like a 1-800 number where you don't have a relationship with the person, or secondly, they're going to move all the assets to whoever the advisor is with their firm or who happens to have the account. Comerica, I've talked with them, and they'll work with other institutions, or if they're going to consolidate it, they'll consolidate it with you. And so that gives me more peace and comfort, know that I'll still be in a position to facilitate everything. So yeah, we like Comerica, but I'm sure there are a number of other good options out there. And so to wrap all this up, once you've gathered all the information, this is not something that you should probably just decide in a few minutes and then submit. What I like to do is I like to go up here to view plan summary once it's to 100%. And then what I like to do is click the send plan details button. You can either email it to the client directly. It has a link they can click on that shows them all the information you put in. Personally, what I do is I like to send it to myself. I will copy that link and text it to them through my rep chat. And when they receive that and click on it, it looks like this. So it's a lot easier. There's not all these different pages. Encore has flushed out some of the extra buttons and distractions. And so you can have them read through this. Most of the time, if someone needs to make a change, it's because they saw a typo or they had a question about something, just want to make sure that they are reading it right. Once they're good to go on this, I submit it to Encore. Encore takes, I've had, sometimes it goes longer if it's depending on the volume that they have, but I think it's within about 2 weeks. And here lately, I've been getting it within a week. And then we're ready to sign. Those documents get uploaded to this tab right here where it says plan documents under the Yabba Dabba Doo Trust. So we have not submitted the plan yet for the Flintstones, but it would be right here for you to download. In our office, we've incorporated a process where my assistant, Alex, she will print it all off. We help them get it notarized. We accompany it with the other forms on their accounts with me that will reassign the beneficiaries, change the account registration, all that. That way they just sign everything in one visit. And then when we get all that back from them, we will upload it to Encore. We will also tie it back into RightCapital. We will utilize their vault. This is Fred and Wilma Flintstone's vault within RightCapital. And if I kind of get out of this and go back in, I want to show you what it looks like when you first click on the vault. Yeah. So RightCapital allows you to create these shared folders, right? So we did this for just estate documents. You click on estate documents, there they are. These digital copies are going to be more valuable to you than the original copies, because when you buy that next house or when you open up a new bank account and that banker needs the trust cert, we can go right here, download it, send it to them. So I think clients really like that. And that's how we tie it back in full circle, because they already have access to RightCapital. They might as well just have access to all their documents right here that we can upload back to them. So sorry to be long-winded if I was. This is just my approach. I'm not saying that you should do it my way. In fact, I change it over time, but that's how we're currently doing it. And we're seeing a lot of value in it. Matt, I don't know if you want to pick it up from there.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of great questions. There was a few. I mean, we can kind of move over to some of these as well. I'll share a couple of things and then we'll spend it with that. But why don't you talk about real quick? Somebody had asked, how do you explain the relationship with Encore versus assuming you have attorneys as well, and if they want an attorney, you could refer them to an attorney. And so, how do you say, client, here's how this works, here's what this is, that helps them understand the Encore option, and if that's something they wanted to pursue with you?
Yeah, I mean, what I say is we partner with a company who all they do is estate planning. We don't want to, we recognize how important it is, but we don't want to practice law. We don't, that's not our forte. So we partner with Encore. They offer these services exclusively through financial advisors and their clients. So the only way you would have access to them is through someone like me. We love them for the following reasons. And I'll go back to this tab I showed earlier. These are our 5 reasons. We're going to save you money and we don't stop working for you. We have skin in the game. We're going to be in a position to get access to these documents really quickly. And then, yeah, so I think I'm answering the question there. I don't know if I am, but that person can reach out to me later if they need to.
Yeah. Yeah, just kind of the how you set the expectations for the client. And we hear our advisors all the time that present multiple options. I can send you to an attorney. You can DIY it online, or I can help you with this platform.
Yeah.
What works best for you, client, and let them kind of choose. And we hear often that our advisors share that 90% of clients say, well, I want to work with you, my advisor. You already know me. You have a sense for this, even though you can't give me legal advice. You have the ability to educate me on where I need to know. And so we had a few other questions here. I was trying to think real quick on, as I'm looking some of these. You must have some clients too you think about doing. We got a few questions on irrevocable kind of trust and planning. Clark, you must be, I'm sure, working with attorneys when it comes to the irrevocable side of estate planning.
Yeah, I get that question a lot. You know, I know your position on it, Matt. You've decided not to offer that at this present time. It's irrevocable. So you have to make sure that when you go into, that's what you want to do. We always refer out to a local attorney for that. We found someone who does a really good job. And in some cases, I've had clients just say, yeah, this is what I want. Now, RightCapital does offer you, and you could show them this back under the estate tool, you can add that if you want to get into the weeds and show, okay, well, let's add an irrevocable trust. Sometimes I've added this life insurance trust to help move more money outside of their estate. But if you're talking about Medicaid protection strategies and things like that, I just stay away from it personally.
Perfect. Yeah, I see a couple questions about ILITs or irrevocable life insurance trusts and being able to model that. That is something that can be captured in RightCapital. Now, Clark, if you can just do me a favor and scroll up a little bit and click into the details tab. One of the questions that we have is in regards to the comprehension of estate taxes at the state level versus the federal level. So with RightCapital, we do capture both. We're going to be considering those 11 states and the exemptions that are unique throughout each state. So that is something that is specific to the state that they're living in when they pass away. So we are going to be capturing that. And this is a prime example with the details. It's the same information in the flow chart. It's just providing us a nice balance sheet formatting of that information, where we can just see it all laid out. So we can see here, if that was applicable, we'd see a figure in the estate tax at the state level and at the federal level as relevant. So it is going to be considering those types of exemptions and the different kinds of comprehension of estate taxes, which is very key. Things like probate is also very, very key when we're trying to talk about estate planning. But I see another question. Oh, go ahead.
I will say on that irrevocable life insurance trust, I was not, sometimes what we will do is we will see, okay, so after we do the credit shelter trust, what is our remaining tax liability potentially if we do die at ages 80 and 90 on these assumed returns? Well, 24 million. Well, what you can do is you can run a $24 million death benefit and see what that is going to be. Well, how will I know if I'm going to be able to afford that, assuming that I'll still be insurable when I'm ready to pull that on? You can go back into the retirement cash flow and you can take a look at what I would show. Yeah. their net flows, you can go down this column and see how much available cash that they'll have to either reinvest or spend, which you can, again, change under the settings of this tool. So that's sometimes the direction I'll go with people if they're like really serious about paying as many taxes as they can for their kids.
Yeah, and kind of on that note, a very important assumption in RightCapital is your tax law assumption. So I want to know what Clark's using is the default, which is assuming that TCJA is going to sunset in 2026. But there is the capacity in RightCapital to switch between different tax laws. So if you wanted to illustrate what does it look like if we immediately switch to 2017 tax law, or if you want to assume that 2026 TCJA is not sunsetting, that's also an option, especially we're on the precipice of such a turbulent time where we don't know exactly what's going to happen ever. Those are the kinds of things that you can compare against within RightCapital. But I wanted to highlight for Clark's assumptions, and at least the default in RightCapital, it is assuming that it's going to be sunsetting in 2026 for TCJA. Another question for you, Clark. I know you kind of already addressed this, but I want to make sure it's clear. Somebody really loves what you had for the why trust, why us, and those guides that you covered. Just want to confirm that it's okay for people to use that and have a copy of that.
Yeah, they're welcome to. So here it is again. You can screenshot this or you can email me if my information's out there, and I'll be happy to send it to you. I'm all about sharing these ideas. It just helps more people.
Perfect.
Yeah, Clark, there's a question too for you, and it's a question for us, but I'll help you. I'll let you answer it for everybody. Does Encore have customer service that can help non-expert estate plan people kind of with the trust design? And so kind of a question of what's the support from Encore's perspective? And so I could answer that, but I'd prefer you did.
Okay, well, if you're familiar with RightCapital support, you can go down here to this chat box and get a reply really quick. It's the same vibe I get with an Encore. Going back into that tool, here it is. Apparently, both of you companies use the same person to use this chat box because it has the same look and feel. So I think that would be the best way to answer that question is if you're already utilizing RightCapital support, you're going to get the same feel through Encore. But for those more specific situations, I've even had, just this week I've had Matt, I think Daniel or someone's, he reached out to me, emailing me saying, hey, I got a question about what you meant when you said in the notes this. I just want to make sure you get it right. And they scheduled a proactive phone call with me just to make sure they're getting it right. I love that. So I'm not always just reaching out to you. I've had your staff reach out to me whenever they have questions and what I'm submitting.
Yeah, that quality control on making sure the documents that we're not that software only platform that just spits it out, that we're going to make sure as our team reviews it and has a 60-point checklist. And then I think hopefully you've had good experience when you've reached out to our team for help, when you had questions that the client's passing on and you're giving good information back, that we're here for you for all that too.
Oh, 100%. Sometimes I feel like I'm bothering you. So
that's all right. Hey, Clark, if you're putting plans through, here's the reality of Encore. We only get paid when you put plans through. And so if we give you the help that helps you do more plans, then that's how we make it as a business. And so we're happy to invest in you. And every time we answer a question, now you know it for the future and you're good to go, and gives you more confidence to do more plans and work with more clients. So that's our goal. We had a question back on the corporate trustee question. Do you need to consult with them first and get acceptance prior to listing them? No, you don't. You should. We recommend a relationship with a professional trustee company. There are other ones as well that I'm familiar with. Clark, you mentioned Comerica, but BOK and Cumberland, we have a relationship with, and they're really good trust companies also that allow you to manage the assets in the future. And so they take on the professional trustee role, but unlike a Wells Fargo, they're not going to take the assets. So you could still manage the trust assets into the future, and they act in the professional trustee role. Now, there is language that needs to go into the document if the client chooses those. We have all the language from all the trust companies that advisors work with. And so when we see you choose that trust company on the back end, we make sure the document reflects their language for that. And so hopefully that's helpful. So we recommend, you begin to work with one. There's an opportunity to retain assets beyond your client's life if they're in trust, that you could be the manager and there take on the professional trustee role.
Perfect. Now I see a couple questions. I want to make sure that it's very clear for everyone. For this session, it is recorded. And so you are going to receive a follow-up email that's going to include this recording. So for anyone that's looking to have taken notes and you wanted to reference back to something that Clark, Matt, or myself said, you are going to receive that recording. That's going to be readily available in the email that you receive. We also do upload all of our webinars onto RightCapital's Help Center. So if you are familiar with the RightCapital Help Center, where we've got a lot of resources, we do have all of our webinars listed there for future reference as well. But you will certainly receive a recording from today's session.
Yeah, there's a couple good questions in here too. And here's something else that we'll mention real quick, and then we'll finish up with just keep the questions coming, folks, and we'll answer them as long as you go. I wanted to bring this up to you. If you like hearing from the Clarks of the world that are doing estate planning and you'd like to hear more, at Encore, we've created a Advisor's Guide to Estate Planning podcast that if you want to look this up, all we do is interview advisors like Clark and say, how do you do estate planning? What tools do you use? What are the approaches? How do you talk with the clients? All these questions that if you want to hear from advisors, it's all just interviews of advisors that are having success with this and how they do what they do. So that's a recommended resource for you. If you wanted to jump in, you can get to it from our website or our knowledge base, or just search Spotify and you'll find it. And then last piece we wanted to throw out to everybody, just so they're aware, our contact information, and we'll continue to answer questions here. But what we wanted to throw out at Encore, if you aren't familiar with us and you're interested in what we do, you can create a free account at EncorEstatePlans.com. Everybody here that attended today, we are going to make an offer to you. If you want to do your own estate plan, or there's somebody in your family or your office that needs one done, we'll let you do your first will or trust-based estate plan, and we'll give you 50% off. If you, when you create your free account, use that code you see there, GROW REVENUE, and that will set up your account with 50% off your first plan you put through by the end of this year. If you launch and jump with us, jump in to check us out and learn more. And here's our contact information, but and RightCapital's contact information. Clark, you were asked what Comerica charges. Is there a minimum for them to work with your client?
There is. I don't remember what that is. But one of the things I remember is they said, hey, and then they changed their minimum, so let's say the client meets the minimum now, or they expect to, any of these trust companies can change their minimums in the future. So that's a really good question to know. Is like, hey, what happens if you can't serve? One of the things I liked about Comerica, and I'm sure other companies do this too, is they will work to find someone else to step in. I know that where I came from, they had a trust department at that brokerage firm I worked at, but if you didn't meet the minimum, they're just like, well, okay, beneficiaries, y'all just go find somebody else. At least Comerica will help find someone, and I appreciate that part.
You also had a question in your pricing sheet, you listed the price for future amendments at $150. What if when Encore, we're changing the price on our core documents, and so we haven't changed them on our updates, but how's that price set in stone, or how do you think about that as you go if prices change on the updates and setting expectations for clients?
Yeah, I have a way in my CRM where I can keep track of the prices that I've told people. I have told people that, hey, I might go up on this in the future, especially in these inflationary times. We are in business to make money while serving clients. So I think people know that, but based on the research that I've done in my market, I think people really appreciate the fee that we charge, especially whenever you are their advisor. So don't forget, if you're using like AdvicePay or something like that, they already have the money here for you to charge. It's when you tap into people's checking account, they don't want to pay. But if they see this as a cost to their heirs and not to them, because whatever they don't enjoy is going to go to their kids, right? So I just remind them, hey, this fee can just be taken out of your accounts here, assuming that it's appropriate for you, and we can look into that. But whenever I position it that way, people are all in. In fact, that's about 80% of the way people like to pay for it.
Yeah, we had one question too, kind of about our process and our documents, just so you're aware too. All of our documents are created by state-specific attorneys, so everything state-specific in Encore created by an attorney in that state. And so, and we've had our documents reviewed by hundreds of attorneys in our partnership with thousands of advisors that have taken them to their attorney and said, "How do you think of this document?" And we've got rave reviews on the quality of the document. We like to say our documents are inexpensive at $550 for a trust-based document, but they're not cheap and they're high quality documents. We wouldn't be working with some of the biggest RAs and broker dealers in the country if we didn't have high quality documents. So that was a question that came up. Yes, we can. I think Alexis put the Q&A in share it out an email specifically.
Yeah, so for
there,
anyone that
welcome.
has any specific questions, please feel free to follow up with your questions. But this is also an optimal time to ask those questions. If there's something that you've asked already, which we've kind of gone through almost all the Q&A, so there shouldn't be much left. But if there's any question that we don't get to, you'll certainly receive a follow-up as needed. But for those of you that use RightCapital, if you've got any RightCapital specific questions, we always have our fantastic live support team that Clark already mentioned, but they're always there as that resource for you to answer your questions. I would say 24/7, but they are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. So they're always there for immediate assistance when planning in RightCapital. Now for EncorEstate, they also have their support team, it sounds like, as well. So that's also a great resource that you have available to you when leveraging both our platforms. We do have our own support teams.
One just popped up. Encore is in all 50 states. And so
I'll say the same thing for RightCapital in case you're capital.
just in case.
Just in case, but we do operate across the
Financial
board.
planning isn't quite as state specific, Alexis,
Yeah.
so I'm guessing it's ours to answer. That's great. Well, great. Looks like we've covered most of these. Oh, there was one earlier about integrate with Encore and RightCapital. This is kind of a 1.0 opportunity. We both were thinking about it, RightCapital and Encore, to say, let's do a webinar. Let's see how many advisors attend, are interested in this topic, who are doing more estate planning. And so this was kind of, and I think from the attendance and the registration so far, it's a success that there's more for RightCapital and Encore to talk about. And we are going to continue conversations that I think there are some really valuable benefits that in the future, if there was an integration that you could send data back and forth, that would be a win for advisors. So as we both RightCapital sees more interest in their estate planning modules and Encore's advisor base grows, I believe that's something that we're definitely going to be talking about to answer your question on a future integration.
Perfect. And then we also have a question just for RightCapital. Somebody asked if it's approved by Commonwealth. It is a partnership that we do have. So if you're with Commonwealth, it is approved. And then already see some great interest about the integration. It's certainly something we're open to as well. And then we have another question. We do have the answer in RightCapital. So for those of you that are leveraging RightCapital and are looking to have accounts linked in RightCapital, we do have a long list of integration partners. So if you do manage assets and things like Charles Schwab, anything along those lines, you can link those as well in RightCapital. For account aggregation, which is client facing, that's also an option as well when leveraging RightCapital.
Do you need to have Encore approved by your broker dealer? Possibly. We do have a kind of low touch option where it's more of a client referral that can leverage our software. We'd be happy to talk to you individually about that, depending on your broker dealer. And also some advisors use OBAs to do this. So there's a couple quick answers to that, but we'd be happy to chat with you individually. We have a few broker dealers we're approved at, don't know which one's yours. And so reach out to our team. Happy to jump into a conversation there. Well, Alexis, I don't know about you, but I am super grateful to Clark. It's awesome when an advisor takes time, the time he put together to think about what he wanted to present here and do this for other advisors. And so, so Clark I want to say thank you, for the effort you put in to share your insights, with all these advisors today, and your willingness to do it.
Absolutely. I want to second that. We have a big shout out for Clark. We appreciate your time. A lot of fantastic insights and endpoints that you made in regards to bridging that gap and the need for estate planning using both of our tools. Before we wrap, I also want to note that you will also see the Q&A section is included in the recording. So for any of you that are always going to be referencing back to something that you might have asked, you are going to be able to see that live commentation in the recording as well. But once again, thank you so much, Clark, for your time. Really appreciate your presence here in today's conversation.
Hey, thank you. It made me a better advisor being prepared for this. So thanks for the opportunity.
We all we get better when we get put on the spot. So, well, thank you, Alexis. We're thrilled to do this with RightCapital today. Huge fans of everything you guys do. And so thank you for coming together. We hope this was a great conversation for everybody that attended. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.